everyone. Thank you so much for entering my virtual kitchen. I'm glad to have you again. This is our fourth virtual cooking class, and I hope to keep improving every single time. So until we can actually be in person, we're just gonna keep having better and better and better virtual classes in this kitchen. So today I'm very excited. We're doing a little bit of a different focus. Usually I center my recipes around our market section, and we use things like, you know, the nuts and dried fruit and of course spices. This class, because I have the opportunity, I really want to highlight Lebanese culture and home style cooking. Now this goes right along with the Sassool 500 because not only are we focusing on healthy ingredients and healthy recipes during January, we're also really emphasizing the use of high quality ingredients because the quality of your ingredients has as much to do as how fresh your vegetables are. So in the Sassool market, we have great olive oil, pure from Lebanon, which we'll be highlighting today. I actually have it right here. It's pure cold pressed extra virgin olive oil. I'll also be highlighting the use of sea salt, which we have as well. And then the use of spices are super important in these sets of recipes, and we have a plethora of spices in our market section. I really encourage you to go check them out. So here is just a handful of spices that I used today. We will, in our first recipe, you'll see how many I'm using. But we pack these actually in the back of our restaurant. We pack them fresh from bulk boxes, and I have not found better spices, and the prices I really haven't found better. So this class is a lot about culture. It's a lot about spices, olive oil. What we will be cooking today is first chicken shawarma that doesn't require a huge spit that you've probably seen in either movies or on documentaries of the Middle East. That's how it's usually prepared. I'm going to show you how you can make it in your home and pretty easy. We're also going to show you how to make homemade cheese, which is very exciting because if you think about cheese being made, I used to think, you know, a lady on a farm kind of churning butter or something, and that's how cheese is made. No, cheese can be made on your stovetop. So we're going to show you how to do that. We also have really good garlic green beans, which is served cold. And we're going to do a tuna salad that is the signature recipe of the special guest we're having today. So being that we're talking about Lebanese culture, we're talking about food life in Lebanon, and we're talking about spices and olive oil and all those really high quality ingredients. The only person I could think to be my special guest today that would be perfect for the job would be my dad. He is our special guest today. Come on down, Dad. So he is going to be accompanying me as we make these recipes. Many of these three of these recipes are his. Chicken shawarma is the only one that's mine. I will be asking him questions. We're going to do a little bit of Q&A. And I do encourage you guys to ask as many questions as you can. Now, if we can't fit in all the questions, we may get really excited. You are welcome to email me after the fact any questions, and my dad and I will answer them for you. But Dad, welcome to our cooking class.
Hello, everyone.
This is a little bit different because it's a virtual class, so we have to get used to it.
I'm not used to work with the camera on me.
Right, I know. It took me a while to get used to it, but we will roll with the punches, and I have plenty of things to ask my dad while we're cooking. Before we get started, while we get started, I'm going to start slicing the chicken for chicken shawarma. You're going to want to have your oven on 375 heating up, and I'm going to go ahead and start kind of butterflying it, but we cut it all the way through. You're wanting your chicken breast to be super thin. Some other notes before I start asking my dad questions. What we have going on right now, the green beans, you've boiled them ahead of time and they're cool. I've had mine in the refrigerator. So when we get to that, the green beans need to be cold. The other thing is we have the milk for the cheese. It is warming on the stove. The warming part is the bulk of the recipe. That's what takes so much time. So we actually have it warming right now. By the time I'm done with chicken shawarma, we'll go right over to the milk that's warming. We'll be able to start the cheese. So those are just a few notes that I have for you. Now, let me get started with the chicken shawarma. And Dad, why don't you tell everyone how you got started in the food business? Here, you can stand with me.
Yes, a long time ago, 1976, we came to this great country of ours, to America, and I was my family was one of the most fortunate. We came because my uncle was legally living here for a long time. He's entitled to bring his mom or dad or his sister, so he brought my mother, and we were all maybe under the age of 21. I was 19 when we came. Anyway, we came at that time, and my older brother was the other reason why we came to Raleigh, North Carolina. And, of course, before we came, my brother and my uncle, they were kind of collaborating on what business we can start to have the family working.
Because you guys didn't speak English when you came here.
No, and then, so that was an employment
challenge.
Exactly. So we started out in 1977 as a Lebanese bakery. It is called Neomond. It's still in existence.
And you guys started with my grandmother's recipe for pita bread, right?
Exactly. Yes. So
that's where it all began.
She is the lady. She's the roots for everything. She's the reason why we came here. She's the reason why we did so well with with our food and with our recipe. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I spent 35 years being in business, in the bakery business, then the food business, making our Mediterranean food for 35 years with my brothers. And as my kids grew up and graduated from school wanting to work with me, I had to say, choose my priorities and sell my share, and started our own, which we call Sassool, in honor of my mother, because she had so much influence on the taste, on the quality, on the recipes,
And my dad is not kidding. When my grandmother, still to this day, she's 93. She will come into the restaurant. She has a caregiver that helps her out. So her caregiver will bring her to Sassool Carry most of the time. She'll sit down at the table. She'll try a pick 4, and she will tell me exactly what I need to do to tweak those recipes to get back to her original recipe. She is sharp as a tack. And she's been like that, since the beginning, being my dad and his brother's kind of guidance, not guidance counselor, but the person who really steers them in the proper direction of this is how the food should taste. And I absolutely love it. Every time she comes to Sassool Carry, it is an absolute treat. And we hear it from the originator. So that's really cool for me. Now, just to kind of circle back to the shawarma so I don't get ahead of myself, I'm slicing it really, really thin. And the reason I'm slicing it thin is because if you've ever seen authentic shawarma, it is layers upon layers of chicken onto a metal spit. And the layers, they end up grilling or rotisserieing in a circle. And all the juices from every single layer kind of flows down. And it's kind of a community recipe of chicken, all the spices, the flavors, it's all being roasted together. Now, so we want to mimic that. And how we're doing that is we're going to layer in our pan as well. But you do need the chicken to be pretty thin so that it cooks through. Okay, so we're taking a little bit of vegetable oil. And I like to use a paper towel to kind of spread it so that it's, not too much in any certain spot. It's just lightly greasing the pan. Okay, now that the pan is greased, we are going to toss the chicken shawarma in my shawarma spice blend. It has cumin, turmeric, it has mixed spice, it has a little bit paprika. It also has some salt, black pepper. So I did this ahead of time. I'm gonna put my chicken into the bowl. Super easy. This can be done while you're doing chores or while, you know, after it goes in the oven while you put your baby to sleep, in my case. Okay, so sprinkle it with the spices. Oh, thank you. Also add in 1/4 cup of garlic paste. You can get the garlic paste at Sassool, or if you've had success from the last class, I gave you the recipe for garlic paste. So hopefully you guys have been trying that out.
What's in the spice mix?
The spice mix has turmeric, cumin, paprika, some sea salt, black pepper, and mixed spice, which is also called 7 spices. We have that at Sassool, and its flavor is really prominent in things like meklube. It's a very comforting flavor. It has the 7 spices, and it kind of tastes like Thanksgiving, is what I always tell people when they're like, what is mixed spice? What does it taste like? Well, it tastes like Thanksgiving. But it tastes really great in rices, in chicken, beef, anything that is a somewhat hearty recipe. You can add a little bit of mixed spice and it kind of gives it personality. It's really delicious. Okay, so my chicken is fully covered. It's all covered evenly. And what we're going to do is we are going to layer the chicken into the pan. It's okay if it overlaps, that's the idea. So we can simulate this idea of a rotisserie. And I do want to give a little shout out. I didn't know that you could make shawarma so tasty in a pan. We've always hand cut everything at Sassool. You know, we're not baking it, we're grilling it on the flat top. But I've been watching some more cooking classes and cooking channel and YouTube cooking, just because I want to up my game and make sure that I'm improving every time for you guys. My new muse, Nadia Hussein, she was a judge on the, I think, British Bake Off. She's done a few family cooking shows. She now has Nadia's Time to Eat on Netflix, which I watch religiously. And she is the one who showed me this style of making shawarma. So if you guys have not seen Nadia's Time to Eat, go see it. She has the best personality in the kitchen, and this is my new model for kitchen time. She always looks so great too. I don't know what that is. Life usually happens and you don't look that great in the kitchen, but anyway, that's TV. So we have the chicken. It's layered in the pan. You can use a cake pan. You can use a casserole dish, just depending on how much chicken you have. You want about 3 layers, okay? And then you're going to cover it in aluminum foil, put it in the oven on 375. We're doing about 40 to 45 minutes. Of course, make sure your chicken is cooked through before you take it out and serve it. It may, depending on the kind of oven you have, it may take a little longer. That's why we're doing this first, okay? And what I am gonna do, because it has such nice juices that end up cooking, I'm gonna put a pan underneath the baking pan, just as my safeguard. In case some juices leak out, we want to make sure that we don't destroy the oven. Okay, so into the oven. And then it is going to do its work for you. You can let it sit and you can cook lots of other things or put your baby to bed or whatever you need to do. You can do that now. Okay, let me get this out of the way for you guys. We're gonna head over to the stove and talk homemade cheese. Come on over. So what my dad has told me about, which I want you to talk about, Dad, it's important to rinse your pot first, which is it's a crazy idea to me, but tell me about rinsing it.
Yeah, create a cover to to the metal, and if you do that and then you add your milk, the milk doesn't stick.
Yeah, it prevents it from being scorched.
Yes, yes.
So you rinse it. Do you let most of the water out though? Like
Yeah,
you rinse
yeah.
and
You
then
pour,
dump it out.
yeah.
But just having a wet pot prevents that milk from being scorched.
Yeah, somehow it stays as a layer between the metal and the milk, so it boils.
Home tips.
Yeah,
Take note.
yeah. That's what my mother said.
Yeah. Well, then we are writing it down in stone. The other thing to take note of is that you're going to want to pour the milk in before you turn the stove on, because if you can imagine, the metal would heat up pretty immediately, and then if you pour milk on after, it's going to immediately scorch your milk. So you really want to make sure that that the milk is in there and then gradually heat it up. This is one reason we started heating it before the class started, because like I said, this is the longest process of this recipe, is the warming of the milk. How do you, it still does look like it's not ready to move forward with the next step. What are we looking for? When it is ready, what are you gonna see?
The surface start to rise.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the boiling process is starting
About
to happen.
Yeah.
About to happen.
And there's like a foam that actually will start to rise with the milk.
Yeah, and you don't want it to completely rise. As it rises, maybe 2 to 3 inches, you turn off the heat, and then you apply the
vinegar and salt.
The vinegar and salt
Yeah.
over it.
Cool.
And then it separates, and then you drain it.
Okay, so we will move forward with the cheese when it gets to that point.
That's right.
The beauty of this class is we have other recipes to do. So while this milk is warming, and I'll keep monitoring it, getting ready to see that foam, we'll pull the camera back over here when it's ready, when it starts foaming, so you guys can see. But until then, let's do the green beans. So here, you want to grab that bowl down, the blue bowl. Like I said, we have the green beans cooled ahead of time. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. So this is one of the recipes that I have 4 siblings. So if you can imagine, we're pretty busy, but on the weekends when we all lived in my dad and mom's house, we would all gather for a meal, usually like a brunch. My dad would always mow the yard. I remember that. And then he would go out, he would pick the mint from the herb garden, and he would get in the kitchen and he would start making this amazing brunch. Garlic green beans were always on the menu. And I think he prepared ahead of time, probably the day ahead of time, boiling the green beans in anticipation for this brunch every Saturday. It was something really, really special. And to be honest, I've never had cold green beans anywhere else but my dad's house. In my aunt's house, she makes it the same way. It's more like a salad. So don't have your idea set on, stewed green beans, or even the green beans we make at Sassool. That's another version of Lebanese green beans. This is a more casual kind of salad version of green beans, and it is really, really tasty. So we boiled this ahead of time. We've cooled them. And now what we're going to need to do, we're going to put it in a strainer, and we're going to remove as much water as we can. And I'm going to try to help my dad, but he definitely has the technique. So we will watch him. You want to put the green beans into there, and then we'll start squeezing and put it on the plate.
Yeah, okay. I need just a little bowl. Let me just strain.
Okay. Here, use this one. Yeah.
Because that's where the garlic is going to.
We'll use that, and I'll grab another bowl for the garlic. So what we're doing is we are going to actually squeeze it by hand. You take handfuls of the green beans, and you're going to just squeeze out as much water as possible. And then we put it onto a plate. We kind of group these balls of squeezed green beans. We put it onto a plate in anticipation for the next step. If you want to take a look at how much my dad is squeezing, you need strong hands for this, but it all pays off.
Yeah, you have to make sure there is very little water left in the green beans, because water dilutes the taste.
Right. It'll be a very bland dish if you leave the water in there. Not to mention it'll throw off the ratios of, all of the other items you're putting in the recipe. if you have that water content. Some of the really cool ways that you can vary this recipe, because this is a very basic, very pure Lebanese recipe. Now, if you want to incorporate some more color or some different vegetables, I have seen this recipe made with lima beans as well, like you do green beans and lima beans. I've seen cherry tomatoes halved and put into this green bean salad. I've seen lots of mint and cilantro incorporated in this salad. So by all means, I always try to give you guys ways to vary your recipes and kind of make it your own and be creative. This is one, because it's a salad, think salad. What do you like in your salad? And you can add this into your garlic green beans. And the other piece of the green beans, which is very true to this class, is the homemade garlic dressing. It's my dad actually does call it garlic paste, but it is not whipped like we did in the last class. It's more of a thick dressing. It almost looks like a sauce that you would marinate something in, and we do actually marinate a lot of things in this garlic paste. And we will start that in just a minute. Until then, do you guys have any questions about the shawarma or what we've done so far with the green beans? Speechless. That's a good thing.
We have Dave. Dave said those beans are truly handmade.
They are handmade. That was one special thing about Saturdays. I mean, my dad literally, he would pick the mint that goes into the egg omelet that he made. We would have that fresh mashed garlic. It was just very, very special. And I feel like it probably simulated what my grandmother did when they gathered for a meal in Lebanon. Dad, tell me about the recipes that my grandmother, we call her Tita. Tell me about the recipes that she chose to put on the table. Was, what kind of determined that? Was it seasonality? Was it what you grew?
It was what's available in the garden.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys had a massive garden, right?
Yes. We were one of the fortunate families that we planted a garden, and whatever the season is, we were using whatever comes out of the garden.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What kind of things did you grow?
We grow the typical tomato, cucumber,
grapes.
There was grapes, apples, mint, parsley.
Yeah.
All these ingredients that we make salad with, they were in our garden.
That's awesome.
And then the other things that you would do once a year, it's like grow the chickpeas and then dry it and store it for the winter.
Yeah.
For a whole year you can use it. The bulgur too. You grow the wheat, you dry it, and these things like the za'atar. You would harvest it in the spring and then dry it, and then of course go through the process and making it like a powder, and you add to it the sumac, and you use that for the winter. The end of the season of figs, it gets really sweet, and you dry it on top of the roofs in our village, and it dries up, and you apply to it. Because it's been a long time, I don't know very little things you apply to, but it dries in the sun, and you store that, and that would become our desserts.
Yeah. So
whether it's raisin or grapes or molasses. Molasses was made in the village. Yeah.
One thing so my dad and my sister and I, we went to Lebanon in 2019. This was my third trip. What we learned a lot about on that trip was food. And so it's funny to me, funny and kind of special too, but funny to me that many of the homes in the villages, in these small community villages, the roofs are flat. And it's not just a style, it's very functional. So like what my dad was saying about drying the figs, drying grapes for raisins, even drying the apricots, the roof was made for the drying. that was the whole purpose of the roof. They're not going to have like one of these angular ones that we have here. It was completely flat so that the sun, things could be laid out. People could actually climb on top of the roof and do what they needed to with their crops.
It fits our lifestyle.
Right, yeah. And I think that's so cool. There was a question that came up.
Yeah, we had a couple questions come through here.
Bring them up.
Let's see here. Can you use canned green beans?
You can use canned green beans. We always go for fresher is better. But yeah, of course you can use canned green beans. They would be a little bit salty. So like I always recommend, like with canned chickpeas, you want to rinse them so that extra salt doesn't contribute to the flavor.
As well as frozen. Can you use frozen green beans?
Frozen best.
Yeah, frozen is best. It's easiest to use as well. We used frozen today.
And did you just boil the green beans?
Yes, we do. We boil them for 20 minutes. What you're going to want to do is make sure they're tender but not mushy. The kind of standard that my dad has told me to do is take your spoon and push a green bean against the side of the pot. If it slices easily, you're good. You turn off the heat and strain them.
And what should you do if you didn't boil the green beans the day before?
Well, go ahead and boil them. Go ahead and boil them. What I would recommend is after you boil them, stick them in the freezer. That's a very quick trick to lower the temperature. You can put them in the freezer for about 30 minutes. You can stir them as well, kind of disperse the heat around and allow all the steam to come up. So I would say it would cut your prep time. Normally, it would take probably 2 hours for them to cool. It may take 30 minutes for them to cool in the freezer, and then you would be ready to squeeze them.
Do you salt the water when you boil the green beans?
No, it's just regular water when you boil the green beans.
Just the regular water.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, if you want, you can put a little salt. With it speeds up the process of
boiling.
The green beans would get tender faster.
Gotcha. So I guess you can salt the water. I did it though. Yeah.
But you don't have to. It takes a little more time.
Yeah.
But that's
And then for the shawarma, what is the crunchy pickle-like ingredient that you put in the shawarma at Sassool?
So it is a pickle. They are wild Lebanese cucumbers. I wish I had a jar to show you, but they are pickles. They're a little bit more tangy because of the vinegar in that pickling process. And we slice them thin, and that's when you see them in small pieces in your shawarma. They're called mikti pickles. You can find them in the grocery section, and they are so good. One of my recent little finds is I dip them in hummus, and dipping the pickles in hummus is really, really tasty to me. So that is what is in your shawarma. Now my dad is starting to make the garlic dressing. And so what he's doing, if you want to zoom in on this, you smash the garlic in the sea salt. And immediately you can start seeing the garlic is actually glistening. The juice from the garlic will start to release immediately, which is really, really cool. And the more you mash, the more of a pulp the garlic is going to become. And then we'll move on to adding some lemon juice and olive oil to this mash. But the goal before you move forward is to definitely have everything as a nice pulp. And it will look like a paste. So it actually is garlic paste, just not whipped garlic paste.
This is more potent.
Yes.
This process makes it taste so sharp.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a true tangy dressing. And I know from personal experience, from not just Saturdays with my dad and mom and the brunch table, but we've used this to drizzle on salads. We dip our grilled chicken in it, like garlic whip. You can put it on dark roasted greens, which is really delicious as well. You can use this in many different dishes. And just use this one right here. And so you add a little bit of olive oil, and this is to continue the process of making it into a paste. Swirl it around. And you see how everything is starting. It was a pulp, and now it's kind of coming together. I did. I just.
Okay.
Okay. And
Let's put the green beans.
green beans in. Okay. So we're adding the green beans, the squeezed green beans into the dish. Clean the garlic off your pestle because you never feed the trash can. That is what my grandmother has told me before.
Okay.
Okay. And this is a little nifty tool if you want to use that one too.
Oh,
You just close it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sure. Easier.
The other way. Put the lemon there the other way.
Oh, the other way. Okay,
No.
sorry.
I thought it was that way. Nice.
Okay. I've never used this one, but
I've used it before. I guess I've forgotten. I have so many tools in this kitchen. It is hard to keep using them every day. But yeah, this is a very cool tool because it allows the seeds to fall, but it just like a regular lemon squeezer.
mhm. Put it here.
Okay.
Like this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And of course, like a lot of Lebanese recipes, it is best eaten accompanied with pita bread. Usually I will stuff my pita sandwich with these garlic green beans. And it's really, really tasty.
So should we put this here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And then we mix it.
There's more.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
It's we're family here. You can mix with your hands.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just washed it.
I hope you guys don't mind. We're gonna be eating this afterwards. This is how I know we mix stuff. Tell me about so living in the village. About how many houses or families were in the village that you grew up in?
The village was very small. About 600 to 800 people.
Mm-hmm.
All families that they know each other. It's like a large family, and we tend to kind of grow up with each other. We know each other. If one family neighbor makes something and they bring a dish to us, and then we do the other way around.
Right. Yeah.
And there are, if we're building, for example, a room, other people come and help.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad or us, if we're grown, we can do the same for others.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like more of a communal.
Yeah. It's like a huge family, an extended family.
Extended family.
One thing that I remember very vividly, so I did go to Lebanon in 2009 with my sister. And we studied at LAU for 9 weeks. We did like a summer course. But we got the chance to go to my dad's village, stay in the house that he grew up in, he was born in. It was such a cool experience. One thing that I vividly remember though is as soon as we arrived, there was about 3 people that started walking towards us, and it wasn't because they needed anything. It was because they wanted to come visit like that. Like we arrived 5 seconds later, they're there to see you, to welcome you, to visit with you. I can only imagine during, when you guys actually had your whole family in the house, that it was very much like that. And I know my dad has told me there was a somewhat of a bartering system with the items that you would grow in your garden, and if this person didn't have that, the other person would bring it to you. It makes me want to live in a small village. As different as that is, it seems like something magic, which I really love.
The mixing process is important. Make sure you mix it enough where the dressing that we put is on every little beans that we have.
Yeah, you want to make sure everything's coated.
Yeah, everything is coated. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And finding clusters.
And then, of course, my dad's rule and my grandma's rule, and probably any chef's rule in the kitchen, you have to taste your dish before you give it to guests. Because, what if you messed up with the level of salt or anything like that? You want to make sure that it's completely perfect before you do serve it. So we do always try it. We try to make sure that it is delicious. Usually I get a huge scoop because I actually really love it as well. Like, yay, we get to taste. It's a little bonus before the actual meal time. But yeah, when I make these garlic green beans, I add a little bit of parsley for a little more green. And then I love the cherry tomatoes. I have them and I put them with that garlic dressing in there. And the taste of the garlic with the cherry tomato for me is so amazing. For me, it kind of ups the level of the flavor. But this is like the base recipe, and you can go very far with it if you do want to vary the ingredients. I did check on the milk. It is starting to have a little bit of film on it. It's not quite foaming yet. So we're close. We're just not there yet. So let's try the green beans. I'll grab a spoon for us. We can tell everyone at home how it is. One day you guys will be tasting these with me. One day soon, I promise you. It's really good.
Perfect.
Perfect. That's what we need.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna clean this tray away because I'm gonna start chopping the last of the vegetables for tuna salad while we wait for this milk to finish. Okay. Like this.
Do you sell those wooden mortar and pestle at the Sassool restaurant?
We don't.
We don't, but we will.
We have a few olive wood bowls that are like good for mixed nuts. They're good for hummus. They're made from actually the wood from olive, like the branches. That's processed and then made into bowls. That's what the mortar and pestles are actually made of too. So I think we will be stocking them in our market section, and of course we'll let you guys know when we have them. Otherwise, you can find them on Amazon. Just make sure, I would recommend Tunisian olive wood in your search because that's going to get you a really strong mortar and pestle. It's the kind that you're going to want. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the items for tuna salad. Tuna salad has the same dressing pretty much as the garlic green beans, that garlic whip base. And we're going to add the vegetables and go from there. But let me...
Put those in the bowl.
Okay. And is this, tell me how the milk looks, Dad.
It's close.
Close? Okay. Okay, awesome. We are getting there. What I'm going to ask, sorry folks. Okay, what I'm going to ask my dad to do is make the garlic dressing again for the tuna while I chop the last of the vegetables. So, salt is right here. No, that's for the rest of it. Okay, we're going to do a little dancing in the kitchen. There you go. Okay, I'm ready now. Okay, so what I did was I prepped some of the vegetables, not all of them. What I have in the bowl is, I started with parsley. We have the parsley on the bottom, and then the diced bell pepper, the diced red bell pepper, the jalapeno, and then topped with cilantro. We still have mint and celery and tomato to do, which I'm going to do in front of you guys. But this is, for me, it has been a real gem to find ways to save time. So while my son Maddox is napping, if I can get ahead and prep anything for cooking classes or even dinner in the evening, I take full advantage of that. So this is one of those things that you can prep ahead of time, stick it in your fridge, and then when you're ready to, complete the show of dinner or whatever you're doing in the kitchen, you can pull that out, and it slices your time in half, or even in fourths or whatever it may be. Now, some important things about when you're prepping those items, the bell pepper and the jalapeno, you want to make sure that the seeds are out. The bell pepper is not as crucial. We don't want random seeds in our salad, to be honest. But with the jalapeno, the level of heat in the jalapeno is going to skyrocket if there are seeds left. So please, please save your tongue and your esophagus and everything. Take out the seeds first and then dice them. With the celery, I'm slicing them thin so that they can also be the same size as the bell pepper. And then you just hold it tight. This is kind of the same hold that I do when I'm dicing parsley. If you guys saw the tabbouleh video, get that? Oh, okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. I'm almost done with this. If you guys saw, if you guys saw the tabbouleh video that we released on Instagram and Facebook, and we also have it on the YouTube channel, I said take it slow and always grip your parsley tight. And then if you need to re-grip, do it. Because otherwise you're going to have random pieces of parsley. And you really want tabbouleh to look very consistent. So just the same thing. You want these consistent pieces of celery. So take your time. Take your time if you need it. See? Nice and fine. The finer the vegetable, it also makes a nicer bite because you're not having a huge mouthful of very large vegetables. You know, you can manage it and eat and talk and, you know, do all the things that you want to do at dinner. So we're putting that in our prep vegetable bowl right here. Oh, let me finish the tomato first. Okay. So we have 1 tomato. We're also going to dice this one pretty fine. And keep in mind, this tuna salad recipe, it is not the Sassool recipe. It's close, but it's not the exact recipe. It is my dad's very own kitchen recipe. So you guys are getting it very special today. Tuna salad is also one of those Saturday brunch items that we would have in late morning. And somehow, even though at one time we were all teenagers and very dramatic and moody, we would all make it to the lunch table when my dad would make a meal because it really, he has the same flavor magic as my grandma, to be honest. That's one of the really cool things. And so my grandma, of course, she does not work in the restaurant. She's far too old now. But my dad does the same thing as what she does. So during the day, he will taste the salads, make sure they're according to her flavor, and kind of be like our quality control person at the restaurant, which is something that, you know, I've grown up with Lebanese food. I've grown up with his cooking, but he knows the exact taste. So this is a job that I feel at this point he can only do. And I'm very thankful to have him there to give us some guidance and kind of redirect our salad makers when they're not on point, because it's so easy not to follow a recipe, you know, when you just go solo and you're like in the zone making 50 salads a day like our salad makers do. Okay, tomatoes go in. We are nearing the end. And then lastly, the mint. And then we'll have my dad mix it up. I know some things that you've put in your tuna salad, like any home recipe, sometimes you change it. So I know you have put onions in there before. Today's recipe doesn't have that.
It doesn't.
Are there any other items that you've put, I guess, in your tuna salad before that we don't have today? Or this is pretty, like, this is the typical.
Yeah. Do you have the green pepper?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any greenery that you desire, you can put it there.
Kind of just like the way you guys did it in Lebanon. What is available in the garden, you use that. You use that.
Yes.
So same grab method as the parsley. You're going to bunch it, and you really want a fine cut. Okay, if you need to go over it again, that's good too. We are not perfect, and that is a-okay. Okay, this is going into the prep bowl. Okay, now, Dad, you can bring that bowl over here. there, and we'll mix it. And so he did that same garlic dressing where you start with the garlic cloves, you add the salt, you mash it, it releases the juice, then you add the olive oil, it forms a paste. He did that while I was talking and chopping. And then you add in the tuna. After that, of course, you'll add in the vegetables, and then we also add some more olive oil, lemon juice, and vinegar. And I'm gonna go, while he's mixing this up, I'm gonna go check on that pesky milk again. Okay, we are nearly there. I would say we have 1 more minute till we need to switch to the milk. But we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you. And then
Yes, that is salt. There's a little bit of cayenne pepper, and there's also black pepper. Those are the spices we're using today in the tuna.
and then we
And
need
the
some
lemon. And here's the knife. And you can cut it right on the counter. And I know the tuna calls for 2 lemons.
Mhm.
There we go. What I'm gonna do is a little piece for the cheese while my dad's adding the lemon juice. So the next step of making the cheese is once it starts foaming up, we have to have a vinegar and salt mix ready. So we have a 1/2 cup of white vinegar in here. I'm gonna add about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm just gonna whisk it together. No other magic is gonna happen. This is where it ends. But I'm just getting that ready for you. So that'll go over to the milk that's gonna make cheese. And what I can show you guys is, see, there starts to be a little bit of film on top of the milk. Let me get a spoon and see if you can see it a little bit better. See, there's slight foam. We're waiting for it to be about 2 to 3 inches. See, there's like a little film right there. But it will rise just a little more before we add the vinegar and salt. Okay. And let's go back to the tuna salad. My dad's mixing it up. So over here, he just added the olive oil and red wine vinegar, and there was also lemon juice. So that's kind of the trio that makes that magic dressing. And of course, we do the mixing by hand. This is the way we do it at Sassool. We don't use any spoons. We use gloved hands, and we mix it with our hands because I feel it's definitely a natural way to do it. But you can also feel what's in the salad, and you can feel when the dressing is actually dispersed onto everything. So I think it's one of the best ways to mix salad, especially. Of course, not hot items or saucy things, but a salad with dressing, definitely by hand. I would always do it that way.
Yeah, it's that you develop a relationship with the dish.
Right.
Yeah, and it's it becomes part of what you desire.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I forgot to tell you guys about earlier, my dad kind of mentioned it a little bit, but this kind of relationship with food in Lebanon, it's a very close connection that people have with food. So one thing that I noticed when we went to Lebanon in 2019 is that when we went to visit some of these people in the village and in some close by villages, they would immediately show us their preserved, or not their preserves, their pantry items. They call it Mounir, and every house has a stockpile of these preserves and jarred items. So from actual fruit preserves to pickled items, pickled cucumbers, lemons, pickled everything, pickled eggplant. They do syrups, make molasses by hand, and they have all these items that would go in your pantry. They call it Mooney, which means pantry. And everyone would want to show you their Mooney because it's like their handmade items, which was really, really cool. They all did their own spice mixes, and it was something where you could see their pride immediately. And they wouldn't have it in the pantry, even though it's called pantry. They would have it displayed. Like they would have all their jars displayed in every house that we went to, which was so cool. And when you try the items that they've made, you know why they have it on display. Wow.
Very good.
I hope it happens soon that I can have you guys with us because this is really, really tasty. Very, very good. And that crunch, the crunch of the celery, I think that really tops it. That's like the best part for me, as well as the little bit of heat that you get from the cayenne pepper.
True.
You don't always see cayenne pepper in tuna or in salads, period. But the cayenne pepper in the tuna salad, really, really excellent.
What's the difference between that recipe and the recipe you have in Sassool?
So this recipe has a few more vegetables in it. The
It
total.
has the tomatoes.
Well, Sassool's does not have tomatoes.
Yeah, and I don't think we put mint there.
Right.
And
The proportion of the dressing is a little bit different.
yeah.
We
And then
don't
the
put
garlic
cayenne
mainly.
pepper.
The
Yeah.
garlic, the way we don't put garlic to the Sassool recipe because garlic, like 2 hours later, it starts to smell bad.
Yeah.
You have to.
It gets way too pungent.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have to. So commercially, you have to make what lasts, what doesn't ruin the taste later on.
Yeah, we have to think, we're feeding about 500 people every day. So our recipes can't just be for what 6 people or 7 people would enjoy.
Yes.
So
Is it similar to the spice blend? Is it similar to the Mediterranean chicken? Had a question come through.
no. I mean, the Met chicken, it really only has salt and black pepper for the spices. This has salt, black pepper, and cayenne pepper. So it is, it's the same, but there's no extra special spices added to it.
It makes it similar with the garlic.
Right.
The amount of garlic that goes in the Mediterranean chicken is even a lot more.
Way more than this. Yeah, but it is same components.
Same components.
Yeah, it's truly delicious. So let's go over to the milk. I think it is nearly ready.
Yes.
Okay. So we're turning off the oven. You'll see that the foam has risen up. See that? And my dad adds in the vinegar with salt mixture. Immediately, what you're going to see is that the milk starts to curdle. And it is such a cool process. You don't have to use any Renee tablet or anything like that. This is just done with vinegar and a tad bit of salt.
And you wait a tiny bit so the vinegar goes in the milk and it starts to separate it.
Okay. Yeah, actually, you can see the milk separating already. And this is a very quick process. It will, it'll take only a couple minutes for the cheese to form.
I think we need a little more vinegar.
Okay.
It's a similar amount.
Do you keep the milk at the same temperature after adding the vinegar mixture?
You take it off the heat, so it's gradually going to become not as hot.
Okay.
It's right there. And so this cheese, in the end, after it stays in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours, it's going to create a nice form to it, but it is relatively soft. It's like a soft cheese, kind of the same consistency as ricotta, but so much more flavor. One reason you're going to see us adding a lot of salt to the cheese in different steps as we move forward in the next few minutes.
You see it's separating right now.
That's right. It almost, it ends up looking like there's more to it than just milk. Yeah, it's curdling, kind of clotting up. We're going to strain that liquid that's remaining.
Because that's where.
Here, bring it over to the sink, Dad, and I'll hold it. Okay, so this is kind of a two-person job, but we're gonna pour the liquid. Actually, let's do it here. Yeah. Pour the liquid so that the clotted part remains.
Yeah, lift yours.
And this liquid is really important. You're gonna want to save it. Stop for a second. Cool. Okay. We're gonna put it to the side. This is gonna cool in the refrigerator, and it's actually going to store the cheese after it has clotted. I'm grabbing more. Do you need more?
In case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So pouring more liquid into there.
And that's it.
Okay, cool.
Now.
This is the reserve, and then we wet the cheesecloth, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
that could have been wetted and.
Yeah, you can do that ahead of time. We're gonna wet the cheesecloth just a little bit, and then you lay it into your colander strainer. And of course, squeeze it from excess water, but you do want a moist cheesecloth.
So it dissolved the salt.
Right.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, this recipe calls for a lot of salt, and in different stages, which we're showing you. But in the end, it's not too much of a salty cheese. Not the majority of the salt does not actually absorb into the cheese, but it's covered in the cheesecloth, which kind of prevents the salt from going into the cheese. What does go into there, though, gives it flavor. So you do want to make sure there is enough salt so that what does seep through ends up actually flavoring it. And so he sprinkled the salt onto the cheesecloth. You need it on the bottom of the cheesecloth. And then see how it's already clotted? It's very, very cool. This is a process I've seen him do so many weekends, but it never gets old. It almost reminds me, one class we'll have to do ashta, but it reminds me of ashta, which is a clotted cream that Lebanese end up using in desserts. It's like a sweet cheese. This, it looks very much like it to me. And you're packing it down in there into the strainer. The more packed in, the better, because of this dome, this form that the cheese is going to make once it's cooled. So you're doing all the prep work for it to end up being a good block of cheese. And usually, so this cheese is very soft, like I said, even after it cools and forms into that dome. It does stay very soft, and you can slice it, you can spread it. But of course, we always eat it with pita bread. And if you want to accompany it with any fresh herbs, such as fresh mint, some thyme, parsley, any of these green herbs, it always tastes really good in that pita sandwich. Also, za'atar is used quite frequently. The dried thyme, sesame seed, sumac mixture. Here, I'll take the pot. Nice.
It's a lot of juices.
Okay, let me give you a plate.
Yeah.
Okay. So you pack it down in there, and we're actually going to add more salt to the top as well.
Yeah. Most of the salt goes down with the juice.
Mm-hmm. Like it won't end up staying in the cheese. While my dad shows you the layering of the salt, I'm going to check on the chicken shawarma to see how ready we are.
Okay.
So you continue to try to get that liquid out of the cheese, because the less water, the better final product of cheese you're going to have.
Yeah, packing it is important so it's smooth on the inside. It becomes,
And usually what we do, we slice it into wedges after it becomes solid. So if it's not packed enough, obviously it's not going to slice well either. It'll crumble. Now you have your dome.
Okay. And you let it sit for about half an hour outside the refrigerator. So the salt gets some of it, sink in.
And soaks in.
That soaks in. The cheese would absorb some of it. And then you put it in the refrigerator till the next morning, and then you take the cloth out and you cut it into wedges.
And we actually have the finished product. Let me grab that from the refrigerator. I'll show you guys. And so it's in that liquid that's separated from the milk. See, like this is the pre-finished product for that brine, if you would. And then this is the finished product. So you use the brine to store it and keep the cheese fresh. And this is a nice block of cheese.
That's how you cut it into
in wedges.
In wedges, any shape you like. That brine has enough salt to, like if you swallow an ocean, when you're in the water, in the ocean, it's that salty or a little more sharper,
And it keeps the cheese very flavorful. It locks the moisture in. It's very necessary. You don't want to have the cheese without the brine. But that is the process for making cheese, which is wild to me. It's very easy, simple, and yes, it's a 2-day process, but it's worth it, and it's not too strenuous either. Now, I know we want to keep this cheese. Can you go ahead and add the salt to our brine?
Sure.
So that we'll be ready for it tomorrow. Actually, we'll have another block of cheese. Dad, what do you enjoy eating this cheese with? Like, for me, it reminds us of what we call our Sicilia sandwich.
Yes. You can eat it with mint. You can eat it with za'atar, za'atar mix. You can have any vegetable, put it in a sandwich. And
cucumber tastes really nice.
Oh my God.
It tastes really good.
If you put cucumber and za'atar, it's the greatest combination.
Yeah, that like
with the cheese.
What I was talking about, the Sicilia sandwich. So my grandmother's name is Cecilia. When we would go and visit her in her duplex, we would arrive at her house. And she would be in the kitchen. She never would just be sitting, in her living room. She would always be in the kitchen. We're like, Tata, which is what we call her. Tata, we're here. How are you? She would come out. She would emerge from the kitchen. And she would have Cecilia sandwiches ready for us. And it's the thin pita wrap with the fresh cheese that she always had. Fresh mint from the garden. Za'atar, the dried thyme spice. And she'd put cucumbers and sometimes jalapeno in there. And she would insist that everyone has a sandwich. She would think something is wrong if we wouldn't take a sandwich from her, even if we just came from lunch. But that is how a true Lebanese woman is. They always want you to enjoy food with them.
They show their love
with food.
With food.
With food, yeah. I think that's very special. That's one reason that I'm inspired by hospitality. It's my true passion, because every day when I woke up, I would see the number one person that has lived and breathed hospitality his whole life, as well as my grandmother. So those two people really influenced me very much. Yeah, we have a question.
Yeah, a couple questions. The tuna salad, I got a lot of compliments on the tuna salad. It looks wonderful. We have a couple here. It says, we are vegans, and they're thinking that it would be good with heart of palm or artichoke hearts or garbanzo beans. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so garbanzo beans I would do first instead of like swapping out the tuna for garbanzo beans. It would really, really taste great, and it would have kind of that substantial meaty flavor. And with all the spices that we have in this recipe, garbanzo beans would be perfect. So I would choose that first, and then artichokes, because I like artichokes.
And then let's see. How do you tell when the chicken shawarma is ready?
So you will see that the chicken shawarma, like the top layer, once the top layer is cooked, in my experience, the rest of the layers are cooked as well. If you're having trouble getting it to finish on time, what you can do is you can then lay it onto a baking sheet, because it's already gotten kind of that marriage of juices and flavors from the layering. After 45 minutes, you've reached the flavor, and if you just need to finish the cooking, kind of lay it thin on a baking pan and finish it. Yeah, that's what I would recommend if you're in a time pinch.
And the salt and the cheese juice, what's the purpose of that?
To preserve the cheese.
To preserve the cheese.
That's where the cheese pieces, after you cut it, goes in that. Of course, you store this in the refrigerator. This one in half an hour goes in the refrigerator. Tomorrow morning, you cut it into wedges, and you put it in a something like that, Tupperware or something.
And I am actually going to do that same trick that I just told you guys about, of spreading out the chicken, because I do not want to wait forever. But you can see this beautiful color on the chicken. It just needs to be cooked a little bit longer. Spreading it out, spreading it thin will really do that job. But the flavor is going to be unreal. Unreal. And of course, I always recommend eating chicken shawarma with tahini dressing. That's how you eat chicken shawarma. That makes it different from like a Greek hero. But of course, you can have it with tzatziki. You can have it really with anything that you love. That's why this is a cooking class, that you can vary things. When we went to Lebanon, what you see pretty much all the time in Lebanon, in any city or in some villages, but mostly cities, they do shawarma right out on the street. And so they will have the rotisseries, within inches of where you're walking. And a gentleman will always be slicing constantly, just slicing chicken, lamb, beef. It's a very much a street food, and it kind of draws you in because of the smell, the spices and everything that are used to layer those chickens or beef or whatever. It kind of flows through the air, through the market. A lot of times it would be right in the city where the souk, the market is, where all the artisans come and kind of like a flea market, but on a professional and large scale, like super large scale. There's portions of cities that are just souk. It's just a lot of artisans everywhere. And there would be a lot of food vendors as well. They make shawarma, they make fresh pita bread right in front of you. They make saj, which is a larger, flatter bread. Yeah, it's made on a dome oven, no cover. It's just completely open faced. And they make falafel right on the street. There's so much street food in Lebanese culture, especially in the cities where it's hustling and bustling. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of food and culture, I know your village is called Mazra al Tufah. So what does that mean? Tell everyone.
It translates to meaning the garden of apples. Mm-hmm. And I grew up where apples were everywhere. Orchards were everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was called, it has that perfect climate and soil for apples. Mm-hmm. And
the village you grew up in, it's more of the mountains of Lebanon, is that right?
Yes. It's like maybe 3,000 feet up high. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And but funny enough, even from the back porch of the home that he grew up in, you can see the ocean. So you are in the mountains, but you look out, from your patio, yes, and you're looking at the Mediterranean Sea, which is very, very cool. There's a couple of pictures that my sister and I took in 2019 where like the sunrise is coming, but the sunrise is coming right from the ocean, and we're like in the foreground, and it made like this magical photo. But that was just the setting of the house. And, I wish I grew up in there. I'm very jealous. Yeah, but the village life is very fascinating to me, and the way that you've told me that Tata, my grandmother, would prepare only the items that you had available in the garden, and that's kind of what would determine what would be for lunch.
What goes on the table? Yes. There is no excess. I mean, we grew up well fed, but nothing extravagant, no extras. And
not a lot of sweets or baked goods.
No, and my mom and dad's principle that kids have to get an education, so that was first, and then the rest of it, we have to be part of growing the crops and assisting adults in making things happen.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you actually go to school for half the year and then the other half you worked? Was that right?
No, I mean, the school year is school year, like here, but we have long summers, we have long breaks. So we go to the city, Tripoli of Lebanon, and to go to school. And when we have breaks, whether it's Christmas breaks, spring breaks, you name it, there is, and we come back to the village to, of course, we love our home, but at the same time, we had to assist with making things happen.
And harvesting the crops and things like that.
Yes. But summer was from spring all the way till September. That's when harvesting the grapes and the figs and making the molasses. So, these processes that you store, and that becomes the rest of the year.
The Mounir.
The Mounir, exactly.
So one thing that we make at Sassool that is very time consuming, and having 6 siblings or like 6 people and of the kids in your family, Tata probably didn't have a lot of time. Did she make grape leaves? Because that's something that takes a lot of time.
Well, you see, that's where my older sister becomes like a second mom. My grandmother would come and visit, so my grandmother has a duty to help my mother in raising a big family. So it was a large family affair in growing a family. I've always seen my grandmother helping my mother, even washing clothes or making the bulgur, for the year.
And lots of families live together, not just like your household, but your grandparents. And then once let's say my brother got married. Tell me about that, because you actually told me that today, which I didn't know about with the house.
Yeah. The family house actually start to stack up. So
they add floors.
They add floors to, for every boy, they would have a floor or an apartment. It's all depend on how much they can build. But they add floors to house the rest of the boys. Of course, the women or the girls, they follow their husbands. So there'll be, in my household, if we want to follow the tradition, it'll be 4 floors.
That's right. Yeah. And you have all the relatives, and then your grandkids end up being in your home, and
yes.
I think that's so cool. I mean, today that'd kind of be a little bit different, like you probably wouldn't find that too much in the States, but the idea of it, having the household being not only the workforce, but also it's that culture of growing up together. Even when I was young and, having a lot of cousins around, we would spend time as much as possible with my cousins. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday would always be extended family time, and we would be going from one aunt's house to another aunt to an uncle's house. And it kind of reminds me of what would happen like in a regular home in Lebanon.
One thing, I guess our lifestyle changing everywhere, even in Lebanon, even in the third world countries. So people are not as much as they used to be. I grew up in the old tradition, but now it's kind of fading away. It's no longer it's a lot more than it is right here.
Yeah, but
in
it's
this
not
country.
as communal
No,
as it used to be.
as it used to be. No,
Yeah.
No, it's becoming more of a nuclear family.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, the shawarma is ready. Thank goodness. Let me take it out of the oven and I can show you guys how we're gonna wrap up this menu. Okay, so like we were talking about, if you're in a bit of a time crunch and you don't have enough patience like myself or a Zoom meeting, so you spread the chicken out so that it cooks more evenly and quicker. We have it coming out. Beautiful. If you guys could just smell this, it is really, really smelling very good. So I'm going to take it over to the cutting board. And we'll slice it, and I can show you how I put it into a pita. Okay, so I'm going to get a few pieces. And usually I would grab it with my hands, but being that it is just out of the oven, I do want to keep my fingers. So the method that we're going to do is you take your fork and you slice it like this, okay? And you'll see how beautiful it looks on the inside. It's for me, it's spiced just right. Like this is all the flavors I want. I love the garlic. We even have just a tad bit of cinnamon in the spice mix. And that kind of, we use cinnamon in our chicken kebabs at Sassool. And we also use it in our shawarma as well, but
in a very small quantity.
Right, yeah, it's like just a touch. But it does add like this bit of, I'm not gonna say umami, but as soon as I try our shawarma, I start to think umami. And I feel like the cinnamon kind of contributes to that. Okay, so you have your weeknight shawarma in the pita. And of course, if we're being authentic, we are going to drizzle some lemon tahini dressing. And if you don't want to make lemon tahini dressing, we do have it available at Sassool, of course. Delicious. Delicious. I want everyone to be making this by tomorrow. It's an assignment. That's an assignment. Let me plate up these items so we can see them all together. They really look super beautiful. And they are so kind of garden fresh and delicious. I have a plate ready. While I'm plating things up, some exciting things we have going on at Sassool. I'm so sad that the Sassool 500 is going to be ending at the end of January, but I hope you guys have been looking at our posts and kind of thinking how you can make your own healthy plate as we start the new year and try to eat healthier always. But as we get into February, we are going to have Sweetheart Salad is back, which some people have requested that so much, not even in February, year round. It's one of my favorite salads. It's pink, purple, and red, so very thematic. And it's like red cabbage, it has some bell pepper, it has radishes. It's just a super beautiful salad. It has that very nice crunch to it. And we will have it all month long available in our case. As well as we are doing not so much Sassool 500 theme, but we're in February at that time, so we can definitely deviate from our diets. We're doing a Valentine's Day dessert board that's going to have lots of really unique treats and snacks on it. It can feed 2 to 4 people of, snacking and noshing on Valentine's Day or Valentine's weekend. We have them available on for pickup the 12th through the 14th, and you can order them now. You can either email me, Simone at Sassool.com, or you can email my sister, Noelle at Sassool.com. And we have that information up on our social media sites. Take a look at that plate. So I'm super excited for February. We will be having a cooking class in February. Mark your calendar. I have the email going out tomorrow, but it's February 10th. We'll be doing Valentine's theme, and I will have another guest at the next cooking class for Valentine's theme. It'll be my Valentine. My husband, Toby, he'll be cooking alongside me, and we'll be making a very easy date night dinner. We'll be making homemade pasta without a pasta maker. What? And lots of fun things like some marinated shrimp, a salad, za'atar pesto. Of course, we'll incorporate a lot of things from our Sassool market section, but it will be a perfect meal that you can enjoy. Do you guys have any last questions for my dad, my special guest today? Any questions?
Let's see here. We got a lot of people thanking you guys for the class. It all looks very delicious. Please tell your dad we want to see or learn how to make his version of mujadra sometime, or at least see it.
Yeah, they heard about you using kidney beans and the whole wheat.
That's right.
From, I think, 3 classes ago.
Thank you for your guest appearance, Mr. Saleh.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my privilege.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Amazing class. Really enjoyed it. The family stories. Is baklava a Lebanese dessert?
It is. It is, yeah.
There's different versions, though. There's a large, warm baklava that many Greek restaurants have. The Lebanese version is always smaller and it's served cold, usually.
Yeah, yes.
But when you go to Lebanon, there's lots of patisseries, and they will have stacks and stacks and stacks of baklava, and then forms of baklava, so like ladyfinger, bird's nest, borma. These are all different versions of baklava, and they just have platters and platters of them,
Yes.
which is really cool.
Yeah, being at a pastry shop in Lebanon is a sight by itself.
Yeah, everything is like gold.
Yeah.
Most everything is actually like a gilded, either it's painted on or it actually is gold. I'm not sure, but it is bright and very, very special looking. And all of the waiters and everything, they wear tuxes, like really nice clothes, because they take their job very, very seriously. So it's really cool. I'll have to post some pictures onto the Sassool Instagram and show you guys these patisseries. They're something to see.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing before we leave for the month of January, I do want to expand my audience for these cooking classes. I want to reach as many people as possible. So if you have neighbors, if you have friends, if your daughter or your mom or anyone would love to even just spectate and watch the class, you guys you don't have to cook on the spot. You can cook at a later time. But if you just want to, have someone else engage in some culture and some food and learn some recipes, please share your knowledge of this class with your friends, neighbors, family, whatever. Give them my email. I'll put them on the list for the next class. Because like I said, I love sharing food with people. I love sharing stories. And the only way I know other than social media is word of mouth. And that is where we started. So please help me share this cooking class with other people and have them connect with me so that I can sign them up for future classes. So thank you guys so much. We hope you enjoy Sweetheart Salad in February and all the other specials we have going on. Check our social medias for lots of day of specials.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
For all your business.